I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name's Jake, and I've been married to Emily for about 6 years now. We met in college, had the usual ups and downs, but overall I thought we had a pretty normal, stable life. She's always been a bit of a drama queen, demanding and bitchy at times, but I loved her. At least I thought I did. We had our routines, and I figured we were solid. That was until a couple of weeks ago when things started to feel off. It started with small things. Emily began canceling plans last minute, snapping at me over minor issues, and sometimes she'd be unusually cold or distant. She'd go out with her friends or run errands, but when I'd ask what she was doing, she'd brush it off or lie outright. I brushed it aside at first, convincing myself she was just stressed or tired. Maybe I was overthinking it. But then I noticed something that knocked the wind out of me. One evening, I was outside shoveling our driveway because we just got hit with a blizzard. I'd been outside for about 20 minutes, clearing snow while Emily sat inside, supposedly working on something on her laptop. The snow was relentless and I was soaked to the bone, teeth chattering when I kept hearing these notifications on my phone. I didn't think much of it, just the usual work emails and social media stuff. But then I saw a notification pop up on my Ring doorbell app and I froze. It was a video. When I clicked on it, my stomach dropped. There she was, Emily, leaning over a guy I didn't recognize at first. His name was Ryan, our next-door neighbor. They were kissing passionately, hands all over each other. I saw her legs wrapped around his waist, and I swear I could see her moaning softly. My head spun. I kept watching, frozen, as I saw them move inside his house. I knew she'd lied to me about going to the grocery store that night, and now I had proof she'd been sneaking around. I felt a mix of anger, confusion, and heartbreak swirl inside me. How long had this been going on? Was this just a one-time thing, or had they been messing around for weeks? My mind raced. Ryan, the guy next door, how did I not see this coming? How did I miss the signs? I wanted to scream, cry, break something. Instead, I just stared at that stupid video, feeling like I had been punched in the gut. I didn't confront her that night. I just went inside, sat on the couch, and stared at the ceiling, replaying what I'd just seen. It was like my world was collapsing around me. I'd always thought Emily was a little self-centered, but I never imagined she'd cheat on me with our neighbor. The one I'd wave to every morning when I took the trash out, the guy who borrowed a ladder from me last summer. I felt sick that I'd trusted her, that I'd built a life around her. The next day was worse. I couldn't focus at work. I kept checking my phone, waiting for her to come home and deny everything. But I knew better. I knew what I saw. Still, I wanted to hear her version, her excuses, the lies she'd tell to make it seem like I was overreacting. I kept telling myself I'd be calm, that I'd handle it rationally. But inside I was boiling. I needed to confront her, needed answers. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was there, clear as day. I didn't sleep that night. When Emily finally came home, she was her usual bitchy self, snapping at me over stupid things, acting like nothing had changed. I looked at her face and saw that fake smile she always put on when she was trying to hide something. I wanted to explode, wanted to yell at her, demand the truth. But I held back, knowing that whatever she said next would change everything. That's when I decided I wouldn't be played for a fool anymore. I'd find out exactly what was going on. I was going to get to the bottom of this, no matter what. I already knew I couldn't trust her, and I didn't think I ever would again. I just had to figure out how to do it without losing my mind first. The next few days were pure hell. I couldn't concentrate at work, couldn't sleep, and every time I saw Emily, my stomach twisted with anger and betrayal. I kept replaying that video in my head, her lips on Ryan's, her hands gripping him like she was desperate for more. It was like a punch to the gut every single time. I knew I had to do something, but what? Confront her again? Wait for her to slip up? I was so furious I couldn't trust anything she said anymore. One night I decided I'd had enough of the silence. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, nothing explicit, just enough to catch her if she slipped up again. I didn't want to spy on her forever, but I needed proof, solid proof, that she was cheating on me. I wanted to see if this was just a fling or something more serious. I was ready to confront her with everything I had. The next day, I was nervously watching the camera feed when Emily came home from work. She looked tense, snapping at the cat when it got in her way. I could see her fidgeting, nervously biting her lip. I waited until she went into the kitchen and started to pour herself a glass of wine. That's when I made my move. I walked in, trying to keep my voice steady but my heart pounding. "Emily," I said, voice shaking a little, "we need to talk." She spun around, eyes narrowing. "What now, Jake? I'm busy." I knew I had to get straight to the point. "I saw the video. I know what you've been doing with Ryan here in our house, in our bed. How long has this been going on?" Her face twisted into that fake, bitchy smile she always put on when she was caught. "Oh, come on, Jake. You're overreacting. It's just sex. It doesn't mean anything. He's just a friend, I swear." Her voice was icy and her eyes sparkled with that manufactured innocence that made my stomach turn. I couldn't believe how she was lying so effortlessly, like she thought she could spin her way out of it. "Just sex," I repeated, voice rising. "You think that makes it okay? While I'm out shoveling snow, you're screwing our neighbor. Don't lie to me." "I saw the videos, Emily. I saw what you did. How long has this been going on? Did you even care that I was outside freezing my ass off while you were with him?" She shrugged, trying to brush it off. "It's not a big deal. We're adults, Jake. We can do what we want. I don't owe you an explanation." Her tone was dismissive, but I saw the flicker of guilt in her eyes. It only made me angrier. How could she be so indifferent? How could she cheat on me and then act like it was nothing? I felt a surge of rage and heartbreak all at once. I wanted to scream, wanted to shake her and make her admit everything. But instead, I just stared at her, feeling my fists clench. I knew deep down that this wasn't going to end well. She was a liar and a cheat, and I was sitting here, feeling more betrayed than I ever thought possible. The woman I had trusted, loved, and built a life with was out there with our neighbor, lying through her teeth. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. She was bitchy, yes, but that didn't mean she was cheating. Or did it? Was I so blinded by love that I missed the obvious? I started to question everything, our marriage, my judgment, myself. How did I get here? How did I become the guy who shovels snow while his wife is screwing the neighbor? It was a mess, and I knew it was only going to get messier from here. I told her I wanted a break, that I needed time to think. She rolled her eyes and said I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid. But I was. I knew the truth now. I just didn't know what to do with it yet. Part of me wanted to confront Ryan to see if he'd admit it, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. The real problem was Emily, her lies, her betrayal, her bitchy attitude when she was caught. I was hurt, furious, and completely lost. But I promised myself one thing: I wasn't going to let her gaslight me anymore. I spent the night trying to process everything, feeling like I was stuck in some terrible nightmare. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd thrown it all away for some quick sex with our neighbor. I kept asking myself how much of this was her, and how much was I just too blind to see. The heartbreak hit hard, but beneath it all, there was this rage I'd never felt before. I knew I had to decide soon, whether to fight for the marriage or to walk away and never look back. Whatever I chose, my life was never going to be the same. The next couple of days blurred into one long, painful cycle of thought and indecision. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I looked at Emily, I saw a stranger, someone I no longer recognized. Her words, her bitchy tone, her lies, they all felt like daggers stabbing me from every direction. I kept replaying everything I knew, trying to piece together how I'd missed the signs, how I'd been so blind. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. Part of me wanted to confront Ryan directly, see if he'd admit what he'd been doing. Part of me wanted to pack my bags and walk out, leave her to whatever life she thought she was building with him. The other part, the weak, desperate part, hoped she'd come clean on her own. But I knew better. When someone cheats, they don't just come crawling back with apologies. They lie, deny, and manipulate. That's when I decided to set a trap. I needed more proof, something undeniable, something she couldn't spin her way out of. The next morning, I went out and bought a small voice recorder, hidden inside a pen. I told myself it was just to catch her lying more, but secretly, I wanted her to slip up so I could finally hear her admit everything. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her betrayal. I waited until she was in the shower, then slipped the recorder into her purse. I knew she'd be heading out later to meet Ryan again. She'd been sneaking out late at night more and more. I kept my phone close, ready to listen to whatever she'd say, whatever she'd do. Later that evening, I was just about to go to bed when I heard her leave the house. I quietly followed her with my phone recording the entire time. She got into her car, drove next door, and I could see her getting out and walking to Ryan's house. The whole thing felt surreal, like I was watching a nightmare unfold in real time. I waited until she went inside, then I crept closer to the window, listening in. That's when I heard her voice, more bitchy than usual, snapping at Ryan, accusing him of not doing enough, demanding to know when they'd be more serious. She told him she was tired of the games, that she wanted to be with him for good. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Her words were just as cruel as her actions. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood outside, trembling with rage, feeling like my entire world was crashing down. I finally turned away and went back inside, knowing that I had enough to ruin her, proof that she had been lying, sneaking around, and cheating for who knows how long. The tears came then, hot and bitter, stinging my eyes. I had loved this woman, trusted her, and she'd stomped all over that trust. That night I stayed up late, going through every detail in my mind. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and broken. I was also furious at her for being so callous, so manipulative, and furious at myself for not noticing sooner. But I knew one thing for sure. I could no longer pretend everything was fine. The woman I married had become a stranger, and I had every right to be angry. I started to fantasize about what my next move would be, what would give me some sense of closure. I thought about confronting her again, this time with irrefutable proof. I thought about packing up and leaving, about starting over somewhere new. But deep down, I knew whatever I decided, this was the end of the line for us. There was no going back from something like this. A part of me still hoped she'd come clean without any more drama, but I knew better. She was a liar, and she'd do whatever it took to keep her secrets hidden. I had to prepare myself for whatever came next. The day I finally decided to confront Emily for good, I knew I had to be prepared. I sat down with my phone, pulling up all the recordings, the videos, the messages I'd found. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't want her to see how much I was hurting. I just wanted the truth, no matter how ugly it was. She was home that afternoon, bitching about her day, snapping at the cat, acting like everything was normal. It was the same routine, but I felt like I was walking into a storm. I told her I needed to talk, and she rolled her eyes, that fake bitchy smile still plastered on her face. I told her I knew everything, that I had proof of her cheating, lying, sneaking around with Ryan. Her eyes widened for a moment, then she scoffed. "Oh, please," she said, crossing her arms. "You've got some recordings, big deal, you're overreacting. It's just sex. He's just a fuck buddy, that's all, nothing more." Her words cut through me like a knife. I knew she was lying, trying to belittle everything, make me doubt myself. But I also knew I had her cornered now. I played the recordings on my phone. The sound of her voice, her bitchy tone, her threatening Ryan, everything. Her telling him she wanted to be with him for good, that she was tired of the games. Her saying she didn't care if I found out. Her bragging about how she'd been sneaking around for weeks. I watched her face twist in anger and shock. Her facade was cracking. "Really, Emily," I said, voice low but steady. "You thought you could keep this a secret forever? You've been lying to me, sneaking out at night and cheating on me with our neighbor. How do you even look at yourself in the mirror?" She was silent for a moment, then her bitchiness reappeared. "You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just jealous because I don't want to be married to a guy who's too busy shoveling snow to pay attention to me. Maybe I needed someone who actually cares." I stared at her, feeling my blood boil. "You think I don't care? I've been working my ass off trying to make this life work, and you're out there screwing our neighbor. While I'm out in the cold, shoveling the driveway, you're getting sex from Ryan. That's just perfect. You're selfish, Emily. You've been selfish for a long time." Her face went red with fury. "You don't get to judge me. You're just a boring, predictable guy. I needed excitement. I needed to feel alive. So I found it with Ryan. It's not like I ever loved you anyway. You're just an asshole who can't handle the truth." That hit me hard. Her words, her attitude, her blatant lies. It all made me realize how far gone she was. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to tell her how much she'd destroyed everything we had. But I kept my composure, knowing I had her where I wanted her now. I told her I was done, that I was leaving, and that she could do whatever she wanted. I packed a bag and left her sitting there, seething and furious, but I knew I'd won a small victory, proof that she was a liar and a cheat, and I had the recordings to prove it. That evening, I went to stay at a friend's house. I needed space, time to breathe, to process this nightmare. I felt numb, exhausted, betrayed, like I'd been punched repeatedly. I kept replaying the videos, the recordings, the lies I'd uncovered. I hated her for what she did, but I also hated myself for trusting her, for believing she could never do something so cruel. I knew I couldn't just leave everything as it was. I needed a clear plan, some kind of closure. I didn't want her to think she'd gotten away with it. She broken my trust, and I was going to make sure she knew it. I wasn't sure if I'd want to stay in the house or sell. It'd start over somewhere new. But one thing was certain, my life would never be the same again. And I didn't want to keep living in this lie. The betrayal had cut too deep. I was hurt, angry, and ready to move on, no matter how much it hurt to say goodbye to the life I thought I knew. The days that followed were a blur of emotion, anger, heartbreak, and a strange numbness taking over. I kept thinking about everything that had gone wrong, how I'd missed the signs, how I'd trusted her for so long. The hardest part wasn't just catching her cheating. It was realizing that the Emily I loved was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. She'd lied, manipulated, and had no regard for what she was doing to our marriage. I spent hours just sitting in my car outside the house, staring at the windows, trying to accept the reality. I decided to file for divorce. There was no way I could stay with someone so selfish, so dishonest. I knew I had to cut all ties and start over. I'd lost my sense of trust, but I still had my dignity. That's what I kept telling myself. I didn't want to be the guy who let someone destroy him, but honestly, it was proving pretty damn hard. I reached out to a lawyer, set up an appointment, and started taking steps to move out. I needed to leave that house, that life behind. It was a symbol of everything I'd been betrayed by. Every time I saw it, I remembered that night when I started to suspect, and how that suspicion turned into undeniable proof. I was angry at myself for not seeing it earlier, but I was angrier at Emily for throwing everything away. I thought she cared, thought she loved me, but she'd been sleeping with our neighbor and lying for weeks. The hardest part was telling my friends and family. No one believed me at first. Emily had always seemed like the victim, crying about how I was too busy or not enough for her. But I knew better now. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, they all added up. When I finally showed my friends the recordings, their jaws dropped. They couldn't believe Emily had been capable of this level of betrayal, but deep down, I think everyone knew she was a manipulative, selfish person. I also reached out to Ryan just to get some closure. I never met him face to face, but I sent him a message, telling him I knew what he'd been doing and that I wasn't interested in any fight. I told him to stay away from my life and my house. Honestly, I didn't care about him anymore. All I cared about was sealing this chapter of my life and moving forward. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I lost a part of myself, someone who trusted, who loved unconditionally. Now I was left with bitterness and questions. How could she do this? How long had she been lying? Did she ever love me? The worst part was that I still missed her, even after everything I knew. That's what hurts the most, knowing I was betrayed by the woman I loved and trusted, and now I had to rebuild everything from scratch. I started looking for a new place to live, somewhere far from all the memories, somewhere I could breathe again. I realized I'd been living in a kind of fog, blinded by love and hope. Now I had to accept that this was over. Emily was no longer the woman I thought I married. She'd become someone else entirely. The betrayal had shattered my trust, and I knew that rebuilding would take time. But I was determined to do it, step by step, day by day. Most importantly, I learned that you can't ignore the signs when they're staring you in the face. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't dismiss it or make excuses for the people you love, because sometimes the truth is buried beneath a mountain of lies, and you have to be brave enough to dig it out. I wish I'd seen it sooner, but now I know my worth, and I refuse to let anyone treat me like a doormat again. I may be broken for now, but I'll heal. And one day, I'll find someone who actually deserves my trust. Looking back, I realize how much this whole mess has changed me, how a single betrayal can strip away the illusions and leave you raw and vulnerable. But in some strange way, I'm grateful for the wake-up call. I learned a lot about myself, about what I deserve and what I won't tolerate anymore. I used to think I was someone who could turn the other cheek, who could forgive and forget. But now I see that some betrayals cut too deep and you have to stand up for yourself, even if it hurts. Since everything happened, I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. I found a new place, far away from the chaos, and I've been working on getting my feet back under me. I don't hate Emily anymore, at least, not as much as I used to. I just see her as someone who made her choices, and I see myself as someone who deserves better. I've realized that the best revenge isn't some dramatic confrontation or burning bridges. It's moving on, proving to myself that I can survive this and come out stronger. I won't lie, it's been a brutal journey. There are still nights when I lie awake and replay everything, wondering how I let it get this far. But I also know I can't let her define me. I won't let her betrayal make me bitter or suspicious of everyone I meet. I learned that trust is earned, not given blindly. And I learned that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is knowing when to walk away. This experience has taught me to listen to my gut and not ignore the warning signs. If something doesn't sit right, I won't dismiss it anymore. I'll ask questions, confront the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Because in the end, I'd rather face the pain of the truth than live in a lie. So here I am, still healing, still learning, but finally starting to see a future beyond the betrayal. I don't regret what happened because it brought me clarity about what I want, about what I deserve, and about facing life head-on. I know now that I am strong enough to survive even the darkest moments, and that there's a better life waiting just beyond this pain. I just have to keep moving forward, one day at a time.